the students and undergraduates. Yeah, I think I'd touch on that. I'd touch on references a bit as well, a bit of guidance, skill sets that should be learned early, proactiveness in some of these things. Again, I'll highlight this basically uh, in relation
That's great to hear.
yeah.
All very good points. The only thing I can add, just my humble opinion, maybe your hobbies or what it would take to release the pressure. A lot of this would be adding weight. Obviously, comparing the comparison between a normal graduate to how you were also, you're a high achiever. Your mind was here. That might put a lot of pressure. So you can mitigate that by just mentioning
Yeah, baby steps. It's yeah. I mean, I'll try to break it down so it's not overwhelming. But yeah, I mean, get into stuff which you enjoy as well, which is related to architecture, photography, rendering. It's all useful skill sets that So don't worry, we'll guide them. So we're starting at 3 sharp, or
Yeah,
I
you can
can see
take it
some
easy
guys
for
streaming in
40 minutes.
already. I'm not sure who's on the call. Is it a pass of AAK or it's just
I can double check. Maybe three
Brian
of
and
these
you?
people.
It's okay. Sorry. Let me get some water. Let me get a cup of tea in the meanwhile while it's 2 hours.
Yeah, I might just go mute for a second, but I'll leave the video ongoing.
Hi, Michael. What time are we starting?
Let me start off by welcoming the people who've come in. I'd like to give it about 5 minutes so that we can gather as many people as possible. Karibuni, everyone. I think you should give yourselves a round of applause for being this timely. I can see up to 24 participants who have joined us. Asanteni sana. Your time will be well compensated with valuable information and a great panel speaker that we're going to have as our main attraction. Let's give it 5 minutes and at least we can get up above 30 people. Then we can start the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Student and Graduate Mentorship Series by the AAK Architects Chapter. My name's Architect Michael Madenge, and I'm the Secretary of the chapter, the AAK Architects Chapter. And today we are gathered together to continue with our exploration of how to design different parts. And this being a continuous series, the second of three, where we explore both conventional and unconventional paths. This would be a way for all the graduates, all the students to find ways to create a better a better path for themselves, a blueprint to a future that is literally personalized. We are thrilled to announce that we are having a very exciting speaker. He is an award-winning architect and the managing director stroke principal partner of Grasp Design Studio. He is also the vice chairman of the KGBS, that's the Kenya Green Buildings Society, and a man who I can definitely tell you aims for the best and best designs, best lifestyles for both Kenya and himself being at a pioneering front. I would like to introduce to you the one and only Gurmukh Panesa.
Thank you for that introduction, Michael. Okay, so thank you everyone for making the time to join us on this this session. I think it's a really laudable effort by the AAK to put this together. I wish we had more of these when we were studying. We didn't have Michael and Brian pushing for these at that time. So I think you should be grateful to them for putting this together. It's a really good exercise. I know, I think last week, Duncan, my ex-classmate, had a presentation as well. So yeah, I think it's useful. Mentorship is critical in our field. Architecture can be very daunting. But yeah, if you have someone to kind of guide you along the way, it's always helpful. And I've had several mentors across my career. I'd like to just start from the beginning. So yeah, as Michael introduced, I'm the principal architect and founder of Grasp Design Limited. We were founded in 2016. And I'll start now from the beginning of where my journey started and what decisions or what impacts and skill sets made the most impact on my career. So yeah, I mean, in high school, I was quite keen on doing architecture. I didn't know what it was about. I hadn't done any research on it. I knew I liked art, and I knew I need something that could actually pay me well enough to live a life. And I thought fine art may not be able to do that. I'm sure it is right now. But I wanted to go for more traditional career. So I said, okay, architecture is close to art. It should be fine. I never visited an architectural firm. And any graduates or people going to university, I always encourage them to do it, so you know exactly what you're getting into. That being said, so coming back to it, at the end of my A levels, I had done mathematics, art, and physics. So after that, I took a 1.5 year gap to earn some money so I could basically pay my way into university. And I worked as a graphic designer. So I used to do screen printing, installation of vinyl on cars, a lot of handiwork basically. And I learned quite a few key skills over there. So graphic design skills, IT skills as well. So I really developed a lot of skill sets when I was working at that graphic design firm. And then I applied for architecture school at UON. I joined, and in the first year, I started interacting with a lot of sixth years. I remember meeting Michael Onyoyo back in first year, and he was all into software. And he introduced me to 3ds Max, and and quite a few people using it at that time. Well, not so many, but a few. So it was him. You had Peter Dow, who was 1 or 2 years ahead of me. He's still doing fantastic renders, and yeah, so I started getting into it. I said, yeah, this is a nice way for me to, earn money on the side, develop a skill set that is useful for my university work. At the same time, I'll be compliant with the law. I'm not doing architectural work because I'm not obviously qualified to do so. However, I can do renderings. So I found it was a nice way for me to earn a living on a similar skill set. So I learned 3ds Max. Back then it was Mentorship, a very difficult render engine. And yeah, the PCs were very slow. We had, Pentium 4s, extremely slow computers compared to what you have right now. And the user interface was very difficult. It was almost like you're programming. One setting was wrong and your renders would come out completely off. So yeah, so basically, I would pay my way, through university using that from first year onwards. Third year, then I had the opportunity to work with Paul Mpungu and Buli Ladu as my studio tutors for third year. That for me was a change, and that helped me really. It helped push me out of the box. So I remember, folding a piece of paper for one of my presentations and showing it to them. And it's like, this is fantastic, develop it. Now I was timid, so I said, yeah, it's too complicated. It'll take too much time. I may not pass if I do this. So I did a very conservative kind of form. I presented it to them, and they said, what the hell is this? Where's the original folded paper form that you had? And and they really helped push me in the direction of developing that form. And I'm very glad I did, and I'm glad that they did push me in that direction, because that helped me think outside the box. I had to develop new solutions. Unfortunately, a lot of the teaching at the university right now is centered on recycling a lot of old details, but the graduates need to know how to detail from scratch, problem solve from scratch. So I had to design linear actuator details for the facades. There were quite unique problems which I had to kind of solve. I had to go and research, okay, how would I fix this? How would I fix this? And it helped me, realize that you can build details from scratch, and you don't have to use, what's been done before. You can actually design it once you've understood the principles. And that for me was a turning point. And again, I come down to the point of mentorship. So in high school, I had a mentor who pushed me in the art direction. In university, I had Buliladu, Paul Mpungu, who pushed me in that direction. And as I developed the skill sets, I started reading a lot more as well. So I read a lot of ebooks at that time, probably in the thousands. Technical books, mostly technical books. So I wouldn't read a lot of general knowledge or fiction, but mostly technical stuff. So, read on facades, materials. So I started getting very technical. And I wanted it to form a basis to basically guide me on, if I want to build something, the technical should not be my handicap. I should be able to build whatever I want to, save for cost and time, obviously being the determinant factors. But the knowledge should not be the limiting factor, right? I always tell clients, we can build you anything. If you want to build on vertically in the side of a cliff, doable. Time and cost is the implication. Technicality is not. So I think that mindset is critical. And then also looking at good design examples globally, looking at portfolios globally. And I want to stress on this point a bit. We've just concluded a hiring exercise for graduate architects where we had about 150 applicants from across, we had from Turkey, Paris. And one thing I noticed is with a lot of the local applications is there's lack of bravery. The designs they could be braver. And this is the time to experiment. I mean, don't be afraid to push the boundaries in university. If you have lecturers telling you, oh, this can't work, this can't work. University is where you're pushing new thinking, basically. Because if we keep on doing things the same way, we're not going to solve the new age problems. But we need to deal with climate change, we need to deal with a lot of things. So if we keep on doing things the old way, we're not going to adjust. And yeah, so coming back to the point of looking at international portfolios, looking at best practice currently, looking at latest softwares and tools. Now, we're not saying that these replace hand sketching or the traditional start of design. We still sketch. I sketch, albeit I do it digitally. I do it on a Wacom Cintiq, basically. And I used to use a Wacom in university as well. So even back then in university, from third year, I was using a Wacom to, I would take a screenshot, sketch of it quickly, and do, quickly. It helped me iterate very quickly. So using technology to get your ideas from sketch to something a bit more tangible is useful. So you need to know have those skill sets. You need to know how to use BIM software. You need to know how to use digitizers. They're very useful. And not just with iPads. A lot of you do already have this. Pencil sketching is great, but it is sometimes slower. But that's the thing. Like you need to adapt. But again, these core skill sets are still there. We still need to sketch by hand to conceptualize. And I always tell a lot of the graduates who join us, I always tell them sketch from the elbow. And what I mean is your sketches should be thinking sketches, not not pretty little sketches over there. You should be able to discard that immediately, because if the idea isn't working, the more time you've invested in making it pretty, you're going to hold on to that sketch. Whereas if it's a thinking sketch, it's very rough, it's very quick from the elbow. Now you can say, fine, this doesn't work, move on to the next. You quickly iterate until you get the best possible solution. And yeah, so moving from there, now coming to fifth year, I started up my own interior design firm in fifth year. Again, trying to keep in line with the law. I never wanted to start doing architecture until I was registered, and I maintained that. So I started doing interior design. I did a couple of lodges in the Mara. I would travel at 4 a.m. in the morning, drive down to Mara, come back. It was quite intense over weekends. Obviously, my university suffered a bit, so don't hustle too hard as well during university. You might not have the time. But yeah, I think the key takeaways is during university, learn the skill sets. Learn, Rhino, parametric design, look at international portfolios, look at all these international firms. What are they using? Yeah, and you'll see it's actually Rhino is being used across most of these. You have, if you're into BIM, go into Speckle, go into BIM Collab, look at ISO 19650, look at all these things. There's so much to learn that if you wait for graduation to learn these, you'll be behind the curve. And unfortunately, a lot of the CVs, if you were to apply internationally to any firm, you would not actually get admission. Competition is very tight. So I think just learn as much as you can, and don't wait on the lecturers to tell you can do this or you can do this. It's not high school, right? You need to have free thinking, push the boundaries. If lecturer tells you can't do this, ask them why, and come back with a counter solution. As you do need to question these things. Again, there's no authority or knowledge. There's no monopoly of knowledge. That's what Bullard used to say. So that's very important. Yeah, and then now coming down to practice. Once I graduated, while now as third year, I started working with planning systems, basically doing renders for them. And I remember in sixth year, Trevor telling me, what are your plans after sixth year? So I told him I want to join an architectural firm and do architecture. So okay, fine. So he offered me a job, and I started working at planning. I never interviewed there or anywhere else actually. And now further to that, I worked there for about 3.5 years. Worked on a number of projects, I&M One Park, a couple of master plans, a good level of experience. And Trevor was a fantastic mentor, still is today a very good friend. And yeah, I left at the end of 2015, took a gap year to kind of figure out what I was doing, set up Grasp Design Limited. And between the time when I graduated, when I left planning, I registered at that point, and I set up Grasp Design, I did not operate under Grasp Design Limited. I operated under Gurmukh because Grasp Design was not a registered firm. Now, this is important. A lot of you graduates are going out into employment. You must make sure you're employed at registered firms. It'd be very unfortunate if you were working 1.5 year, 2 years, and you come to the end of it and you realize you can't get registered because the firm you're working with is not a registered firm or the principal is not registered. So please check on the Borax website. Make sure you're working with registered entities. There are plenty of forward-thinking firms. Ours is one. We have Cave Kabage, a very good friend of mine. We have several good, Kilonzi, Bugatman. We have so many good firms in the market, and which are registered and doing things the right way. So please check that. We wouldn't want graduates to waste their time basically working with quarks in the industry. So yeah, I think the key takeaway for me on this is learn new skill sets as much as you can, especially during university, and implement them. So whatever you learn, implement it. So if you read a book and you've seen a technology, implement it in to your project. And that's where you can kind of practice what you're learning and it sticks with you. Number two, learn the software, as I've mentioned. And then number three, have a very strong ethical and value-based system. So for me, I stuck to I wanted to make sure I was compliant with the law fully from day one. So I never, at any given point, stepped away from that. And I still stick to that this day as well. So we have a very strong ethical policy in the office. We don't do any kind of unethical behavior, don't we condone it. So we're very strict, extremely strict on this. And it's helped get us a lot of work. You'd be surprised. I know a lot of people say, oh, this is Kenya, you can't work like that. But I think the contrary, because working in this way, you become the exception rather than the rule. And because of that, you attract much better clients. So the clients will respect you, will pay you scale fees. You will attract international clients, international collaborations. We collaborate with a lot of international firms, David Ajay, a couple of other international firms. So I think those are the kind of takeaways I would say are important. And yeah, in our practice now, as we have it, we'll be about 20 staff by January. And yeah, we're employing parametric design. I'm a BIM manager. We're getting more BIM managers in the office. We're implementing, very technical acoustic design analysis, class 1 devices, software that can calculate RW analysis. We have a 3D printer, Bamboo H2D. We've got spectrophotometers to check for color accuracy. So we're quite technical in that regard. And I think it's useful. For instance, you're on a site, lighting conditions are not good. You need to verify the sample. So with the spectrophotometer, it's scientific. There's no ifs or buts. The contractor can't argue with that. If the delta is less than one, not less than one, it's not the same color. Same for noise. So when we designed the Microsoft space, for instance, we did a third noise analysis, and to this day, it's really useful. We're able to, we designed it for about 38 decibels RW, and we put in solar heat gain control glass on that. Again, coming back to not being limited by what your lecturers tell you sometimes. I remember in university, a lot of lecturers used to say, oh, you can't use glass. Yes, you shouldn't as much as possible. However, there are cases where you have to. For example, we were doing a retrofit of Microsoft. It's on Wayaki Way. We have issues with air quality. So again, none of these lecturers are thinking about air quality. So if you have a building in the middle of CBD, air quality is an issue, and so is noise. How will you cut it out without having a sealed facade? These are the questions that you need to start thinking about. Or you're doing a boardroom in the middle of the space. It's a 18-meter floor slab, 18-meter wide. At the center of it, you have a meeting room. How will you ventilate it passively without allowing the noise from the meeting room to go across? So you need to think about acoustics. So these are considerations where you now start thinking, yes, we do need to think about mechanical ventilation. It's not a demon. Yes, avoid it as much as possible, but there are places where you have to install it. A lot of you might start working on data centers. So again, you do need to think outside the box, start questioning everything. Don't accept things at face value and question everything. I think, Michael, I think that kind of adds it up. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted me to speak about.
You've captured a lot about the path that you walked by yourself and how you got to the level where GRASP has been recognized internationally even. There's definitely some points that need clarity, which I'm going to let the rest of our audience to start asking questions on the chat. On my side, the most I can say, just giving the audience that 10 minutes gap for them to write their questions, is that you've pointed out something very critical, which is to have an independent mind when you're in campus, to make sure that you can question what the system or what has been explored so far, and find your space or make yourself curious enough to adapt with what the trends are in the world. As it is, there's this thing where we obviously coming from the same alma mater, where we have taught about passive ventilation, how to make sure that your buildings are 100% oriented east to west. And I resonated with your points, as you said. In real practice, you find different obstacles. The briefs are not the same. You don't find all plots lined up on the east-west axis. Now, do you continue following what your lecturers were saying? Are you going to be put aside because cast aside because you decided to do something on a north-south orientation? Who said that it has to be a rectangular building? It could be triangular, it could be circular. All this questioning gives you a chance to develop a language. And I appreciate the fact that you've opened the floor or the minds of our listeners to explore that in their own path as they go forward. Just for interest's sake, let me give you a chance to elaborate how setting up clients might have been a challenge when you left employment? Because I know most of the questions last week were on the same level.
Okay. So career path's a very good question, actually. I always tell people there are two ways to grow once you graduate. Grow within a good firm that allows growth potential. One where you can become a director eventually. It's not going to be overnight. It'll be 5 to 7 years before, or even longer, before you become a director. So you need to be patient. The other option is start up your own thing. It'll take as much time. Honestly speaking, I was flat broke for the first, I think, 3-4 years after setting it up. Basically, you'd have clients coming in. It would keep you, you'd pay your own salary, which is fine. You have working on your own terms. However, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. So you see what ends up happening is the grass is always greener on the other side. But then once you actually go there, you realize, okay, yeah, it's not as easy. And you have to face all the hurdles, statutory, you have to deal with the tax man. And if you're compliant, it's fine. But they'll still come and audit. So the point is, it's not easy being a business owner. And so if you can find a firm where you can, it's a very clear path to directorship or ownership. And if something you're interested in, then stick it out in that firm. For me, there was, because for instance, at planning, if at planning, there was more growth potential, I felt, I would probably stay there. So, but yeah, so I ended up opening up my own because I felt like the design direction was different. I felt a bit stifled design wise. And I felt it wasn't the same direction. Yeah. So I think, yeah, so it took me about 3 to 4 years before we made our break with Microsoft. And then from there, that helped me employ people and, set up the office and, build up from there. And the key thing was we did not negotiate on our ethics or our values. So, no taking kickbacks from anyone, making sure everything is black and white, just working properly the way it should be. And yes, it takes a bit longer, but it's more fruitful. So now we have a very sustainable, we're 20 staff right now, and we'll be celebrating 10 years next year. So again, stick to your values. There are clients who appreciate that, and the work will come to you. If you're doing things the right way, if you're doing good design, you're doing it ethically, honestly speaking, it's a no-brainer. And you're basically pegging yourself against international standards, not local standards. And I'll tell this to the students as well. Stop setting your bar low. Don't compare yourselves to your desk mate. Compare yourself with someone who's working at Zaha. Compare with someone who's working at Foster, basically. You should be competing. Say, why can't we compete with them? Even for us as a firm, we say, why can't we compete with the big boys? Why can't we compete with Foster? These are the big firms, basically, internationally. Yeah. And that's from a design point of view, there's no reason why we can't. And that mentality should be there. You should aim high. Stop limiting yourselves to, oh, my so and so is sitting on this bay is doing this. Let me see what they're doing. No, stop copy pasting details. Make sure your portfolio is strong. Follow your values, good values. Really take it far.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we're still waiting for more questions to be brought up. I can fill up the space with just one last one, which might be more contentious.
Could I answer the first one? The most critical aspects that employers are looking out for today.
By all means, you can take the first one, but you wait for the rest.
Yeah, Praise, how are you? Thanks for your question. So number one is design clarity. Again, a lot of the portfolios we're getting are very cluttered. So, they have like 100 colors on them. They look like a rainbow. And there's a link I have. I can put it on the chat. It's a really good link. It's basically, it's a critique of architectural portfolios. I would recommend that you look at it. I'm pasting it in the chat. It's a very good critique of kind of what level of portfolios you're looking at. That's number one, design clarity, just your layout of your portfolios and how you present yourself. I'll give you a very good indication. Your email, just your name or your email, is it all in lowercase? That's a telltale sign, actually. What's your attention to detail? So if your email is properly named, you capitalize your name, number one. You have actually a body to your email. You're not just attaching stuff and sending it off. There's someone WhatsApp me said, "Ukona job." Like, honestly speaking, how do you apply for a job like that? So, first impressions matter. So your body, we don't really need a cover letter nowadays. I mean, it's fine. We don't really need a cover letter, but if you have just a good body there, you have your portfolio in your CV, that's good enough. And again, the layout has to be good and your designs have to be good. They have to be clean. Your renders have to be good. Again, even just the renders themselves, what software you're using. Because if I see someone, and they're just doing some very basic motion ones, I always ask, I was using 3ds Max in 2006. Why are you not using, better software right now? There's T5, there's so many better softwares right now. Why are you not pushing parametric design? So for me, those questions start arising. Like, the tools are better, the machines are faster. There's really no excuse for you not to push these boundaries. So we normally look for these items that showcase your work. Again, the clarity of the design. So when your designs are too cluttered, the basic design principles. I still have my models. I actually have my models from first year here in my office, and these were models. I remember working with Kahari Miano, where he was a studio master, and I remember this discussions with Makulomba as well, Malimu Makulomba, and just those interaction of those three forms, still so relevant to date. And always tell graduates, this foundational knowledge on design principles is critical. Clarity of volumes and spaces. So unfortunately, I've seen a lot of the designs nowadays are cluttered. They have a lot of clutter on the facade. They have like 10 different things happening on them. Makulombo used to call it Madogodanyo, but yeah. So you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, you can go on.
Yeah, okay. I hope that answers your question, please. Okay. Yes, okay. So I can see, thank you for your suggestion. You mentioned something about being a BIM manager. I mean, software is doing to them to be a BIM manager. So BIM manager, there's a course of, I did my training through Graphisoft, and there's an ISO standard, ISO 19650. So there is a course, it's actually about to be launched right now. So you can join that. I wouldn't recommend that for graduates just joining. I would recommend that once you're in the field for a bit. For just new graduates, I would recommend first getting the basics right. Then Rhino, then parametric design first. If you do want to get into the BIM, just learn at least the BIM side of ArchiCAD before you get into BIM manager training. I feel you do need to work a bit before it's relevant, because then you can start seeing the gaps in your systems wherever you're working. For us, the systems are critical. That's what keeps the firm running. So yeah. Again, if you do need to reach out, you can always text me. You can reach out on the email on our website if you have any queries, and I'll actually answer all these questions. If you have any other questions, you can write to that, and we'll respond to that. What prompted you to start your own practice? So for me, I felt like no one was pushing design as much as they could. Number one, it was a very timid approach to design. So we wanted to start pushing boundaries in terms of sustainability, in terms of parametric design, and not just doing, aesthetically or parametric design just for the sake of it, but one architectural parametric design or architecture that is sustainable. So for example, like for Microsoft, we did the whole design of the reception in bamboo, and it's all parametric design. Parametric optimization of sun shading devices. See those kind of things. Now, yes, there's psychometric charts, they have tables, all of that. But then, end of the day, those are inefficient. Those are from the 1960s or whatever it is. It's inefficient ways of working. Nowadays, you can just you plug it into the different softwares within this different plugins. There's Ladybug. There's quite a few plugins for I wouldn't call them plugins, but yeah, you can call them plugins for Rhino basically. But they help in kind of calculating environmental factors, sun shading devices, radiation levels, so many things that you can use. So learn this skill set so you can make your workflow optimal. Yeah, so for me, that was what was missing in the market. And I felt also the quality of production drawings was not to international standard. Like very few firms over here actually do specifications. We do our own specifications. It's normally about 500-600 pages long, covering tile adhesive, grout, and everything else. Yeah, so I think that for me was why I set up the firm. How can I better communicate my abilities to prospective employers when I spent a week small projects? Wow, that's a tricky one. So put in your all when you're working at your, even with those big small projects, even if it's a house, I would say, put in the effort in terms of design. If it's like the form making is good on that, it normally tells, it shows through in the portfolio. So render it well, again, eye level, 2-point perspective, and those kind of things, those kind of considerations. Even with your renders, if I see someone doing, some weird angles on their renders, it's for me, it's a giveaway that they've not thought about composition. Where if someone has a nice, 2-point perspective, all the verticals are vertical, eye level, again, that is someone who has taken some time to, and they know what good composition is for architectural renders. Dennis Mongi, two to three best books you could for reading. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Let me give you. There's one which is Digital Construction by Branko Kolarevic. I'm trying to see which other one I would say. There is Constructing Architecture by Andrea De Plazes. It's a good one. I can send the list on the chat. Yeah, I'll have to dig it up, to be honest. I've read a lot, so it's kind of tie on one would be a bit tricky. But there are a lot of books I read. So I read on different kind of things. So I used to normally do it on like building construction. There's obviously building construction, by the handbook by Chudley. That's a good one as well for the basics, but it's a bit outdated. Architecture in Detail. There's quite a few. For each specific type of, for example, for glass, I read a whole different book on glass. For timber, I had this whole series on woodworking. So I dived straight into woodworking as well. As I said, it's going to be tricky for me to kind of isolate a few, but I can share as many as I can. Portfolio size, not too few, so at least 3 to 4 projects, but just well done, honestly speaking. Like one of our hires, he was hired because of just one project. Actually, 2 of our hires were just hired because of one project in the portfolio, and that can, that can do the job. Moye Malel, as a graduate taking an unconventional architectural path, I'm curious, how can the creative chaos inherent in design technologies be embraced as an industry? Wow. Creative chaos. I think you need to learn the software in a way that it's not driving you, you're driving it. So sketch first, right? Sketch first, and then once you've developed the sketch to a certain point, take that in, test it with a quick, for how I normally do it. I'll sketch, take it into ArchiCAD, I'll model some base areas, see if it works, just get a base geometry, take that back to concepts or Photoshop to sketch, sketch over it again, take it back. So it's a very iterative process. That's why I like doing it digitally, and I use the Wacom for that. So yeah, don't let the software determine what you can or can't do. And if you can't do it, learn another software. So either learn Rhino, Grasshopper, and that's why Rhino is useful because it's a very strong software in terms of freeform modeling, NURBS modeling. So for example, the Microsoft reception, there's no way I could have modeled that in ArchiCAD. So we had to use, I modeled it up in NURBS basically. And then one of our team members who was very good in Rhino basically took that and turned it into the lines and moving forward. What tips can you get clients? Again, I would just say, do a good job. It's word of mouth. We don't really advertise, and you shouldn't obviously because of Forex rules. So we just rely on word of mouth, and really that's it. Just do a good job. Deliver projects on time, on budget, and make sure they are standout projects as much as you can. Obviously, the limiting factors. Not every project is going to be iconic, and that's for sure. But wherever you can, just impart a bit of design excellence, wherever you can. Even if you're limited, just try to see how you can do it within a cost. Even if you have a budget issue, just see how you can kind of still make it look, well designed in everything that you do. So I think taking a lot of care in everything that you do. So for us, our production drawings as well are very thorough, extremely thorough. So and it's similar to what you get if you're working from any international firm. Forster would back that it's similar level of quality, and really that for us is the differentiator. It's what when a client comes and sees our work, I tell them, yeah, the renders are pretty, but it's really how you can turn those renders into actual built product. That's what matters actually. Apart from the hard technical skills, soft skills again. Design sense, I would say, and people skills. So not being, it's a very generic term, but not being genuine. Don't be too arrogant. Be confident, but not arrogant. And listen, and listen a lot, basically. So learn how to change your mind. So if you feel there's a point which is better or it makes more sense than what you were thinking, learn how to change your mind. It's important. There are times where I'd be arguing with one of my team members. I tell them, no, let's do it this way. Then they explain, okay, this. It's like, yeah, that makes more sense. Let's do it your way. So learn how to change your mind. Be open to listening. That's very critical. Even with clients, it's appreciated. But at the same time, you need to also push back where certain things are not right. So it's a balancing act. Where you're sure of your your conviction on that item is strong, then go for it and push and insist on it. Yeah, design skills, design sense, basically. Again, proportions, DK honestly, it's read it, understand it. Yeah. Those three volumes, the three shapes, how they intersect, critical. And to date, we still use that. And I keep on telling graduates, this foundational skill is so important. And a lot of people just forgot it along the way. From second year, you forgot it. And now in your sixth year work, you have a form which has and bobs popping out of it. It looks very strange. So I think that's important. Having a unique, Emily Mbugua, unique design point of view and specific, architectural firm, which is better, having a unique design point of view? Okay, to be honest, I think it's Sorry, you're not giving me two options. Having a unique design point of view. I think the question needs a bit of reframing. Maybe you could reframe it, Emily. I could re-answer. I could answer it then. It doesn't make sense right now. Um, Xiaomi, whoever Xiaomi is that, once you started your own firm, did you ever doubt things would work out? Of course. As I told you, first 3 years were difficult. Um, Cash flows were bad. It's not easy. It's not easy. And let no one lie to you that it's a rosy journey. Um, so yeah, but hang on, keep on trying, keep on pushing. Don't give up if you want to take that direction. So, but you need to, all I'll say is make sure you have at least 1 to 2 years salary saved up before you leave your employment. Critical. You need cash flow. Cash flow is king. So you need to have that. Don't start spending on things like an office. I used to work from my dining room up until we opened up. Um, until we got Microsoft. So it's fine. You can work from home. It's okay. Yeah, there's no shame. It's your work that matters. Um, for someone that gets into sorry, for someone who wants to get into something like computational design, how soon should I think about specializing? It's not specializing. It's a necessary tool set. I would say from first year, honestly speaking. From first year, you should actually, by the end of first year, you should know Max, a bit of Rhino and Grasshopper, or D5 if you want to go to D5, towards that, or Twinmotion. Twinmotion is also developing quite well, or Unreal. And this is the direction that you need to take. But you need to start from first year. There's no, if you're late to it, you're gonna, by the time you're in sixth year, you should be an expert on it. Any other queries? See, that's it. Josh, is this Josh? My friend Josh? Josh is this. Thank you, whoever it is, but yeah.
There's a new question that just come up.
Yeah, I've seen as from Billy. Yes. From your experience, how essential is project management in translating architectural creativity into deliverable outcomes? Critical, absolutely critical. So number one, good documentation is important. So your documentation sets have to be flawless, and that way you can actually have a strong, you can have strong control over the contract administration. Having a good contract in place, having good documentation in place, that's what gives you power on site to deliver a good project. When your production drawings are weak, you don't have enough drawings. The project with the Courtyard Marriott that we're doing at the airport, that has 900, about 400 to 500 A1 sheets and about 400 A4 pages and specifications. So you do understand it's a massive amount of documentation. However, it covers every single thing from grout to paint colors to specifications for, for Microsoft even, we had specifications for the adhesive, which is holding um, the lipping to the particle board for your tops, Clibrate PUR glues. We had, C2TE, C2TE S1. These are specifications for tile adhesives. Most people don't know that. So you need to get really, really technical into this. And once you have that foundational knowledge, that's where it makes it a lot easier to implement good contract administration. And then the PM gets a lot easier as well. Now you can enforce and tell them, fine, this is what was specified, follow this, follow this, follow this. But there's a lot of education needed, especially in this market, to guide contractors and to do this. So, Emily Mbugua, yeah, okay, fine. I can see you've reworded your question. Better to have specialized niche or broad versatile? I would say broad versatile. We do everything. We have done interiors, we have done retail, we have done post-mortem facilities, we're doing aircraft hangars, we're doing master plans of 10,000 acres, offices, hospital. So all of those kind of lend high-end interiors. So when you broad knowledge. No, it's a jack of than a master of just one. That's actually the full phrase. So I would say always learn as much as you can. Architects back in the day were master builders. So you do need to also understand MEP services. So normally we would, ask MEP engineers, fine, what's your COP for your heat pumps? What is, I want to use the earth tube cooler for this project. What can we do? Again, these kind of questions, most engineers are not used to hearing this because it's not the norm. So you do need to know enough to question. For individuals who don't naturally lean towards social media, how crucial is it to have social media presence? It helps, to be honest, but not. It depends on the platform as well. So if you're looking for bigger projects, LinkedIn is the go-to. I've gotten work from LinkedIn. We've gotten billions of work from LinkedIn, billions in construction costs. Sorry, not fees. I wish fees, but yeah, it's construction cost from LinkedIn. So yes, LinkedIn is a very useful tool set, and I'm most active on that. Instagram, Facebook, we're really poor on that. Honestly speaking, we probably need to get better at posting more. But we're not looking at getting smaller resi projects, for instance. We're looking at larger projects right now, especially because we have a much larger team. But at this scale now, we need to make sure that the projects are meaningful in size to pay for our overheads, which are very high at this point. Okay, I think that's it. That covers it. I'm not seeing any questions.
Well done, well done. I think your answering format is quick fire, which is valuable. I might ask just for depth in the next question. You've talked about BIM, and myself, and I'm a big advocate for it. And I think anyone who's trying to open a farm or to push the envelope in architecture is a big advocate. I would like just to bring a Manu versus Arsenal type of question. Why is ArchiCAD better than Revit, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I've used both, by the way. I've used ArchiCAD, I've used Revit. I have always been a rebel in university as well, right? I remember one of the lecturers who wears a big coat was asking Paul Mpungu why my building doesn't have skirtings on it. And he was just like, look at the form of this. I mean, seriously, are you asking a question like that? So for me, I've always been the other person, not the one wearing the big coat. So I do like rebelling. I feel like Autodesk kind of force people to move towards Revit. It's not an intuitive product. As an architect, I don't find it intuitive, honestly speaking. And the argument is, and everyone says this, is, oh, but coordination is better. How many people are actually coordinating properly using Revit? The people who are actually saying that don't really coordinate, number one. And number two, ISO 19650 is open plan. And it's an open format system. So they're encouraging, because it's not a closed ecosystem. Autodesk has a closed ecosystem. I prefer more open source ecosystems. So ArchiCAD ties in. We normally use BIM Collab or Speckle, to do collaboration. It's been working fine so far. We've not had no issues. So we do our clash detection, and there's no, lesser quality. We find it more intuitive, especially because it gives a nice balance between 2D and 3D, and it's quicker for us to, document with it. We've really created good systems around it. And most people hate on it because they don't know how to use the BIM part of it properly. But if you see how we use it, you'd be very surprised.
Thank you for that. At least anyone who needs to hear the differences would be, we are all open to listening in. We have a new question that just came in, actually two. I think you can continue with your answering of the questions.
Can one be taking portfolio to companies to look for clients when starting up after registration? It's a fine line. If you get too pushy as a consultant, your value diminishes. So the moment you start selling yourself too much, your value diminishes. you will need to be patient on this one. So okay, that's my approach at least. So I don't actively go to clients. What we do is we do introductions. We do reach out to us. Okay, fine. Would you be interested in just share your email? I'd like to share something of the sort. And sometimes we do that, especially when we feel there's an opportunity that we need an introduction. And sometimes we do that on social media, but not really going physically to clients. But then again, your portfolio would need to be strong. Start from the basics. Start from trusted networks. Build your portfolio slowly. It's not going to be easy. It'll take a couple of years. So just be patient. And don't take shortcuts. Don't take kickbacks. Don't start signing off for guys. Don't be a stamper. Yeah, don't ruin your reputation over a few shillings. There's a lot more shillings to be made if you're doing things the right way. Honestly speaking, it's a lot more profitable. I know people think, oh, I'll make a quick 1.5 million shillings for stamping one building. However, if you get scale fees on a 5 billion shilling project, you can imagine what that amounts to. So yeah, I think key thing is here, doing things the right way is actually more profitable.
Yeah, the previous question was more philosophical, I think. It's about
I didn't see that. So it's from Billy again. Investing architecture. Yes, yeah. Yeah. As I remember, him because of the Rubik's Cube he holds. In embracing architecture as a total art master building that draws from geometry, digital craft, and natural science. Rebellion. Rebellion is going against teaching architecture like it's high school. I'm against that. In university, it should be about free thinking. So I'm against people telling you you can't do this or you can't do this, especially in university. Honestly speaking, you can't use glass. Yes, you shouldn't. It's high embodied energy. It doesn't work well. Thermal mass is an issue. Yes, but One Bly in Sydney is a good example. They've got twin layers with micro louvers in between. They've used glass. They've got good sun shading. It works. Are there issues with it? Yes, it's extremely expensive, but it works. So saying that it doesn't work is a lie. It works, but there's conditions to it. It works at a very high cost. And again, like we're doing a project on Wacky right now, and we need to cut out the noise. We need to cut out the air quality over there is poor actually. So how do you cut those two out and at the same time let light in? Very critical, how do you play with that balance? So you need to be very clever about it. So we've got like innovative facade solutions which have automatic. They shut down basically after a certain wind speed and things like that. So and they cut out noise as well, and they filter through some of the air. We've got earth tube cooling. So I think those for me are rebellion, basically fighting against people who are kind of limiting thinking in universities. I think in the field it's not really rebellion, but in university you do need to kind of push back against this kind of thinking. It's caused so much damage to the education of graduates, and we've seen a drop in quality of graduates coming off year to year since we've left. Most of our employees are actually from 2018 batch, somewhere around that side of time, and we're really getting fewer and fewer. Out of 150, I could only shortlist a very handful of people, applicants, and it's unfortunate, honestly.
As we continue waiting for more questions to come up, I just want to also expand the conversation. You are the vice chair of the Kenya Green Building Society. How do you find that network as it is? Is it making grounds? Are we getting more eco-friendly in our designs? What do students, graduates need to do to, except for getting for EDGE rating, which I see everyone is getting an expert rating license nowadays. What can be the message for the young guys coming up?
So I think learn the basics. find the certification is important. We have two edge experts and a lead expert, a lead AP in the office. It's important. Microsoft was the first LEED Platinum certified building a project in Africa under LEED 4.0. So it was a milestone project for us. Now, these kind of projects obviously are good visibility, it's good for business. But on the flip side, you need to learn the basics as well. So you need to learn about, again, what I was mentioning, indoor air quality, acoustics, your VOC levels. You've got VOC monitors and particulate matter monitors as well. PM 2.5, 5, so on and so forth. So you do need to understand the basics of sustainability and what, technically how to achieve this. So again, from MEP systems, instead of using solar water collectors, using PV maybe and heat pumps with a COP of 5, right? Again, some of the decisions that you're making, how do you impact them? What impact do they have on sustainability of your projects? So learning about embodied energy, learning about indoor air quality, learning about so many different factors, actually, to be honest, dust control, MEP systems, PV power generation, things like that. So I think apart from the certification, you actually need to know a lot about the technical stuff. LEED is a good, if you look at the LEED training information, it has a lot of this technical information. It's very useful. And I'd actually encourage a lot of graduates and people in the field, go and buy the latest versions of like metric handbook, right? Especially metric handbook. It's really useful. So it has so much information on HVAC systems that if you read that page, front to back, it's a treasure trove of information. And that's the latest versions, obviously. So go buy a hard copy of it, the latest version, and you won't regret it. As a young professional, how can I determine what a healthy work-life balance looks like? Yeah, so I actually never translated that, probably once in first year. So no, I don't encourage people working late. I actually had a talk with one of my team members about working late the other day because he would work too late. But yeah, I think it's important. We encourage a healthy work-life balance. You have lives outside, work. You're not working just for, it's not the only thing you have. You have families, you need to balance it out. So find a workplace, or whether it's in your self-employment, find a system where you do have the balance. Early on in your career, it may be a bit lopsided early on, but it shouldn't last too long. So maybe by the first 2 to 3 years, actually first 2 years even, you should not move past that. And again, it shouldn't be, you spending the whole night there. It should be maybe a couple more hours. And it might be not at the office, it might be you learning new skill sets, right? So taking the initiative to learn new skill sets so you're more efficient, so you spend less time working. So it's work smarter, not harder. I think that's what I would say. Kenan Njenga, that's a very good question. What is the market like for building performance analysis? So we do this for a lot of our projects. Again, heat gain, and it's required for LEED for a lot of these projects. And we're encouraging a lot of our team members and people to get into this. It's critical. It's very useful. It's part of the future as well, and it's part of parametric design. So using Ladybug, using some of these tools to generate this information is very useful. Obviously, we're not doing CFD analysis for wind and things like that. The other thing which is missing in the industry is facade design. So if people are interested in facade design, get into it. There's literally no one doing this in the market. It's a open market for that.
So thank you, everyone. Let's keep the questions coming. We have more or less 50 minutes left. This is your opportunity to ask all the deepest questions that have been troubling your minds as you've been experiencing architecture. Mine is to just fill up the space. So please jump on board onto the chat. So as it is, Gurmukh.
People are very shy, yeah?
Yeah, there's some shy people here.
Yeah, but don't be shy. Just ask. Even if it's, we'll answer it. Don't worry. Whatever question it is, we'll answer it. So even if you think it's going to be silly, it's okay, just ask away. There's no silly questions.
You are just describing that your hobbies more or less are around photography. I guess rendering can be termed as a hobby, but I know for sure you've done photography even for astrological features.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot of photography. Again, all of this matters. So rendering, when you learn rendering, let's say for Max, need to know a bit about the photography settings. So you have to go into photography as well. So if you're doing photography, you're doing rendering, automatically your compositions will be better because you know how to frame the shot when you're taking a photograph. Again, how you go read up on taking architectural photography, and that will guide your architectural renders. That will influence your composition, your colors, those kind of things. So all of these are symbiotic. They all feed into your overall skill set. Learn as much as you can. Photography, sketching, whatever similar skill set you can, it'll always help. Obviously something like cooking might not help, but then it's maybe you'll get inspired by an onion somewhere or something. You never know. So um, let me see some of the questions. What would you most essential skill sets I could learn as a student? The main thing over here is design clarity. That's the key thing which is missing right now in most of the portfolios. So go look at DK Ching, look at the link which I posted earlier on portfolios. That's a very good guide on what I'm talking about. So your designs have to be clean, your portfolio layouts have to be clean, your composition of your renders have to be properly done. The renders themselves don't have to be photorealistic. I've had a third year student apply, from international student, and fantastic portfolio. I mean, it was one project. It's just one project, but two images, and it showed me all I needed to see. Beautifully rendered, such good composition, clean design, and just seeing those two images, I knew this is someone who can join the team. So again, these kind of things are very important. Yeah, well, you start questioning it here, especially in university, when you're fighting the system. But yeah, and the career has been okay. I think you need to find the light whenever you're when things are looking dim. So for me, when I get bogged down with all the management side of things, I still the team does a lot of design work, so I don't micromanage my team. Basically, I mean, they do a lot of design. I'll come in and give feedback. Obviously, certain key projects I will design myself. However, when I do want kind of a bit of spark, I'll tell them, okay, fine, I'm going to design this one. You guys back off. I'm designing this one from scratch. So yeah, I do normally design, especially the larger projects. I normally do design those myself. Um, but yeah, I think you do need to sketch. Sketching is really you'll find joy in it. So whenever you're feeling down, feel architecture not for you, just go and sketch, uh, develop ideas, and you'll feel the happiness again. I'm seeing Malal's email question again. Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about 4D, 5D planning basically for BIM. Yes, very useful. And but I'll say, yeah, let's first get the basics right. This is very useful information, yes, but what I'm trying to say is first get your design information, design skills, your technical skills, get all of that first sorted, and then you can move into this other stuff like BIM, especially the BIM systems. Um, Fred Amati, very good question. Mental block, keep on sketching until the mental block goes away. Literally, there's no other way, right? You cannot wait for inspiration, especially when you're running a firm. You can't wait, I'm going to be motivated tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that. Sit down, sketch until you basically break through that mental block. Keep on sketching. You will have to, you get frustrated at first, but eventually the ideas will start flowing. So that's why I keep on saying do thinking sketches, don't do pretty sketches. Sketch, start. And for me, that's why I like doing it digitally because I can put new layers, put new layers. I'll test it out. So it's very useful. Use there's an app called Concepts. It's a very nice app on iPad or Android devices. For the education on bachelor's degree, I would have loved to do a degree in facade engineering. I still would be interested in that, to be honest. Um, the local master's degree on environmental is really pointless, honestly speaking. I wouldn't do it. It's a waste of your time, unless you want to become a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. But other than that, there's no real value add to that. If you want to do a postgraduate degree, I would recommend doing something internationally on facade design, or something very specialized, computational design, facade design, something that is actually very different from what you've read before, because there's no point kind of learning the same stuff. Jamila, I've seen your question. As we begin our careers, how do we derive value from the time and effort invested, and how do we maintain hope in a market that doesn't appreciate it? Unfortunately, it's a tough market. And I always feel bad when I'm sending regret emails to all the people who've applied, because there are so many good portfolios that we wish we could apply, hire, but obviously we have limited positions. And we do sometimes actually share these with colleagues across the industry to see if they need someone to come on board. But yeah, just be hopeful. I think be positive. I'm a very positive person. It's fun. We have quite a bit of fun in the office. Even outside of work, we go play paddle, or we have a table tennis table in the office, which we normally play for short breaks. So we have a good time in the office. I think it's a nice work environment, and I think that's the key thing. Work where it's positive, it's fun, and it doesn't feel like you're being bogged down with work. All the time. But obviously, you need to be efficient. So then the skill sets to get stuff done quickly, and you'll enjoy the process more. I think that's the key thing. Just efficiency. Efficiency is very important. Crispin, obviously, yes. I'm not going to lie and say no. So yes, you do have to, especially for larger projects. At times, especially when you're starting off. So you do need to kind of be a bit flexible on these. Normally for these ones, we charge hourly based instead, which is still in line with BOREC guidelines. So we just charge them as an hourly based system. But there's a caveat on this. If you charge, price wars are a losing battle for everyone, because the moment you start charging low fees, you will attract worse clients. So what we realized is saying no is better than accepting a project which, where the fees is too low. So we've said no to quite a number of projects, quite a number of clients, and for your peace of mind, it's worth it. Now, unfortunately, when you're starting off, you may not have the luxury of that. I understand. We've all started up as well. So you may need to take a bit of this nonsense basically in the start, but as your reputation builds and you've got a good portfolio now you can start saying no to a lot more of these bad clients, as they can call them. And also education, trying to educate the clients is important. So we've actually tried to educate as many clients as we can. Some are obviously not going to listen, but you try. Where do you stand in uplifting the unregulated persons in Kenya? I strongly believe in this. I do believe CAP 525 must be adjusted to allow diploma holders to find a way to registration if they want to. They need to have a very clear placement in the industry. So there are a lot of people who are operating very illegally in the market. They just no registration, nothing, and they're practicing. They're hiring people, unscrupulous people, basically in the market, and be very careful as graduates. However, there are a lot of diploma holders who are left in limbo. Let's say they had no option, or funds are an issue, and they can only do a diploma, and now they want to, let's say, eventually get registered. How do they go about it? So I do believe CAP 525 needs to be adjusted to allow for diploma holders to eventually get to registration if they want to, or have kind of like a scale of fees or some kind of arrangement to them. There needs to be some kind of system for them to grow within the industry. I feel very strongly for it because for me, if you're going to follow the law, I mean, follow the law obviously in any case, but where the law has a problem, like in this case where it needs improvement, then we should push for this what do you call it, improvements to the law and I feel strongly about this. I've raised this before as well on other platforms. Adaptive reuse. We've done quite a few adaptive reuses. Very interesting projects, Olive. South Point is a good example in Johannesburg. So they're converting, imagine now CBD, you have all these old office blocks. How do you convert them into, you could convert them into student housing, for instance, right? A very good example is Visit Ngara, where they're kind of, changing the whole outlook on Ngara, which is nice. I think I find them fun. I like adaptive reuse. It's quite. I'd love to do more of these if I could. It's nice. They're nice projects. Okay, I can see more questions rolling in now. Current and advancing trends is AI have in architecture. Okay, yeah. So AI is useful, but don't let it replace your key skill sets because you'll stop thinking. So still think about how you're going to draft emails. Otherwise, you're going to get brain rot. Honestly speaking, you'll forget how to draft emails, and it'll just be AI typing for you everything. So don't let it do 100%. Let it augment. And same like we had a graduate basically apply, and he had done all his renders using AI. So I said, look, you've not developed skill sets for rendering, so you've missed out on composition, lighting, how to set your sun, these kind of things. And again, because of that, you wouldn't be able to communicate your ideas as clearly as you would have wanted to. So do a base render and then optimize it or adjust it using AI. Again, when you're typing an email, reword maybe only a section of it or just clarify something with AI, not the whole email. So that's what I'd say is just use it as an assistant, not as a replacement of your skills. Well, Malel, I'll have to come back to you. Question you're asking quite a few, so I'll answer yours last now. So let me go through the rest. What are your thoughts on architectural research? Critical. So, for example, we're trying to push into researching reuse of recycled plastic for 3D printing and using that in uses where the plastic doesn't leach into the environment. So there's no microplastic pollution basically from that recycled plastic. So putting it, for example, into carcasses for chairs and things like that. So we're still researching that. We've got some batch of recycled plastic coming in. So we'll test that out with our 3D printer, then we'll see how it's still a work in progress. But yes, it's critical, especially material research for recycled materials. Very important. Again, another item which is untapped is things like carbon footprint of materials in Kenya. So what's the carbon footprint of cement and concrete in Kenya versus Europe, where they're using coal? So I think these things are very important. We do need to get, but not pointless research. So research which is very grounded on day-to-day architecture. How important is the legal thing? Wow, interesting question. We have legal representation. It is important. You'll deal with a lot of contracts. So key thing is obviously managing liability. So I'll just say, as a firm, excuse me, as a firm, when you're working on large projects, you need to ensure that all your drawings, anything is specified, you're limiting liability. So you have to go through it. That's why we are so keen on our level of detail for our drawings. Because you can imagine if we specify a wrong tile in DCA for a tile, and contractor goes ahead and builds that, we are liable. However, if we specify the right and we took reasonable care to insist that they did their job, then the liability is on the contractor's side. So these are the key things that now start, influencing liability and things like that. So contracts, liability are very key issues basically with architecture firms. Would you consider or do trainings to graduate architects? Yes, we do internships. But again, internships, unfortunately, we also get a lot of competition from internships. So we're quite selective on who we give internships to. But we really encourage internships as much as possible. We've got a group with the UON students. You can reach out to Mumbi, I believe, who is part of it. She's familiar with that, and you can reach out to some of the students. If JCAT wants to open up a group as well, happy to do so. Where we just kind of have informal discussions and allow for a bit of mentorship basically for the students. So if anyone here is from JCAT and wants to set up a group from ASA, JCAT, happy to do so. And you can invite a couple of students and we can have some interaction on that as well. Number of projects being taken up by international firms. Yeah, okay, this is a mixed bag. I've been called in to fix a lot of issues from international firms, unfortunately. They don't understand the context, no, they don't understand the climate. So we have a lot of issues. There's a lot of neocolonialism basically over here, where they think that, Kenyan architects can't do the same job. Very unfortunate. To be honest, I think we can do a better job than most of these international architects. We've got some phenomenal firms in Kenya. So yeah, it's just a lack of knowledge, and often then we are called in to come and fix these issues. We have a lot of South African architects making major messes in the region, and yeah, it's very unfortunate, but it's a mindset that we need to change, and the only way to do it is by delivering good products in the market as good as we can. Felix, I can see a question on finance. It's good to understand this because you need to understand ROI to a certain extent. They don't expect everyone to calculate, cost of finance, but you need to understand if a building costs this much, what's the ROI on it? The rental yield needs to be 8% or 10%. What are you kind of targeting? So you do need to understand a bit about everything. It comes back to my previous point. So finance, MEP, various other factors. You need to understand bits about most of these factors. Okay. Michael, I think I've covered all the questions. Then we go back to Malel's. These were a bit of philosophical one. Conventions of the time, embracing uncertainty, tectonic expressions, and how to conform. How might a practicing again, these ideologies have changed. So if you look at when IMP was designing, it was postmodernist a bit. Sustainability was not at the forefront. So nowadays, you can't just do a fancy form and let it be unsustainable. If for true, in my opinion, this is my opinion, true performative architecture is architecture that is, not all buildings need to be iconic, first of all, and that's something else you need to understand. So affordable housing does not need to be iconic. It can be good design, but not iconic. However, good aesthetics, good practical, good functionality. I always say architects are like jugglers, and the more balls you can juggle, the better an architect you are. So lighting, ventilation, functionality, aesthetics, sustainability, including IAQ, acoustics, social factors. Again, affordable housing, the high-rise don't really work well from a social point of view. So I think with changing dynamics globally, the priorities of architecture will change. So now we're looking at climate resilience, we're looking at sustainability, whereas 20 years ago, the requirements were very different. It was more about expressionism and things like that. It's still there, but now we have more balls to deal with, more issues to deal with. So it's become more difficult actually. And that's why we need more tools, and you need more tools in your arsenal as an architect to kind of work around this. Boogie, could I send you send me your email address? I'll send you a list. Or I need to take it up, honestly speaking. It's not something I have at the top of my head. I'll need to go through it. There are quite a few. I can send you a list on it. But generally look at generally look at general books on building construction. Look at books on cutting edge fabrication, especially Branka Kolarevic. He's very good. And let me try to bring up some links. I have put on a few. Yeah. Okay, Michael, sorry, over to you.
Very vibrant conversations going on. The answers you're giving are clearly worthwhile for a CPD, if I may say so myself.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's keep asking questions, people. We still have about half an hour to go. We've talked about KGBS. We've talked about your experience with Grasp, how you built the company, and looking forward to even more wonderful projects coming from that side. Maybe to fill the gap, can I ask a general question? What is the one building in, let's say, Kenya, East Africa, or Africa itself that you are jealous of, that you might say, if you had the chance, you'd have wanted to have done it?
Jealous. Well, there are quite a few. I would have redesigned half of Nairobi, honestly speaking. The one thing which I feel sad about is the state that Westlands is in, simply because we have unscrupulous individuals who are signing off, for designs being done by the Chinese. So it's very unfortunate. If it was me, what I would have told these developers, whether Chinese or whoever, first of all, do the right thing, follow the right procedures, get a local architect and do it properly. Number two, as you said, the orientation is an issue on these plots. So they're very linear. They're meant for single unit dwellings. So they're not meant for high-rise towers. So I'd convince them to buy 2 plots, right? And create nice green spaces within them. And it would be feasible, honestly speaking. They'd attract better yields, there'd be better products basically they'd have less issue with stormwater, so many advantages to it. So I do feel pained when I see, Eastleigh, I see Westlands, I see all of these areas where we have so many issues, pipeline, and it's a bit frustrating. You feel like your hands are tied, you can't do anything about it. So we kind of focus on the projects that we have and we do the best that we can on those projects. Really, that's the best we can do, because there's so much I'd love to change. Honestly speaking, whenever I'm walking, I said, I wish I could pedestrianize this street. I wish I could, like Woodville Grove in Westlands. Ideally, that should be fully pedestrianized. Imagine it. Nightlife over there would be amazing. It would be really cool, but no one's had the vision of that. I mean, that's the thing. So I think one day we'll see a better Nairobi.
And that's going to be a team effort.
Yes.
I guess it's also a call to all the participants here to think broader. There's always a niche. There's always a way to make Nairobi more vibrant. Let's go back to the question and answers. I see a new one has come in.
Yeah, I guess that. Thanks, Olive. I'll wait for your feedback on this. Ted. Okay. First of all, don't think of architecture as walls, roofs, and floors. That's where you're going wrong. Don't think of it as elements. First, think of the form. You'll figure out how to build it. That's not an issue. But first, figure out the form. And then you can figure out how to exactly to achieve the form using the technical knowledge that you have. So, for example, I used to sketch. So I would take a scaled plan, sketch over it, scan it in, and then try to do a elevation sketch, just a section sketch actually would be useful. So I normally do a plan and then a section sketch, right? And again, not pretty sketches. You're doing thinking sketches, and then take it to your software, whichever software you're using, SketchUp, Rhino, AAK, whatever you're using. Take it to that, and start, draw, fill, extrude, see how it plays around in SketchUp or whatever it is, AutoCAD. Then take that 3D, sketch of it again, develop it. Again, it's iterative, so you keep on doing that back and forth, and that's where you get some of this.
That can be a segue just to ask as a side question. How do you think we should relate with other consultants? It's not something that is usually taught in campus. You find yourself engaging with QSs, services engineers, mainly during the career portion.
You must, it's mandatory. You have to work closely with them. There's no way to, you have to work closely with the MEP engineers, structural engineers. So for example, when we're working on a concept, I'll tell them there's one project we're doing, steam cooling, to reduce the air by 6 degrees before it gets into the AHUs, air handling units, right? Again, air quality is an issue. So we do have to have air handling units. We've got passive ventilation. We've got deep overhangs. But at the same time, we do need a sealed facade in one side of the face because of the noise and the pollution is very high on that side. So for that facade, we actually needed a lot more forced ventilation, not air conditioning, but forced ventilation. So using air tubes to kind of to cool. Now these discussions have to come in early. So that's why they're not people who come in after concept, or you need to coordinate to them. So we use rebar stages or rebar stage 3. You need to coordinate to them. Use beam coordination. Where are your pipes going? Those kind of things. Sleeves between your beams. Structural systems. So for I&M, one park, when I designed that planning, I used U-boot system, and I just proposed it in university, I remember. And I remember being asked by one of the lecturers, Mr. Bigcoat, why there's no downstand beams over here. Again, you need to push the boundaries. Yeah, there's a lot of technology out there which is new, and sometimes people don't understand it. So you do need to educate some of these individuals.
My 2 cents is probably engaging out of the office, creating a rapport, some sort of respectful relationship with your friends, your peers who are services engineers, identifying who's also in the same path. Maybe some of them are adopting BIM faster than others. And then when you eventually get a job, doing the proper sequence of onboarding the other consultants and having now the chance to collaborate, to do all those brainstorming, clash detection. We figure out, okay, if this is going to be a problem in the aesthetics, how can you convince a structural engineer not to over-provide elements everywhere, structural elements?
Yeah, no, it's important. It's important. We're doing a project where we're doing a 7-meter cantilever. So, yeah, again, you'll be told this is not possible. We're doing it. So, is it complex to do? Yes, it is, but you work around it, So, there are ways to achieve these the solutions for everything. But yeah, you need to work closely with your consultants and work with good, honest consultants. There are a lot of crooked MEP consultants as well, and contractors. So just work with a crowd who's clean. There are very few that you'll find them.
Maybe just to continue asking people, come on board, ask your questions, or even your compliments to our speaker. And yeah, we still have about 20 minutes. I see another question. I think you can take it on.
Yes, normally we don't get a brief per se. Sometimes we get a client to say, I want a house. So you start asking the right questions to develop the brief. You'd ask them, how many bedrooms do you want? What design design style I kind of lean towards? Is it, you want something modern, something more neoclassical, and everything. A lot of those can be done well. You can design, neoclassical nicely as well as modern. So I think the key thing is for us, we obviously do align more with modern, more contemporary styles, but we're quite open-minded. So there are certain projects which may be a locale where it's not suited. And so again, coming back to the brief, yeah, you'd ask them the right questions to kind of get the brief. And with experience, you'll get more of this. Just ask more questions, ask and listen. So how many bedrooms do you need? How many kids do you have? What are the age of the kids? What are your priorities? That's a garden, this pool. We don't recommend. You sort of go and do this. Sometimes you can get clients. The clients will actually get it and tell them go buy the next plot. We've actually guided clients to do that. It's important. At a certain point, you will have enough confidence to start telling clients to make certain decisions. And yeah, I think if it's for the betterment of the project, some of them do see the light, and be honest with them. So you don't, someone comes and tell you, I want to build a house for like 20 mil and it's actually going to cost them 100 mil. So you have to be honest with them about that from day one. Don't mislead your clients. That's critical. So we normally upfront to them or tell them, fine, cost of construction right now for a high-end home is about 120,000. Yeah, so I think yeah, you can develop the brief basically just by asking the questions.
Yes, there's a new one.
Okay, interesting question. I wanted to work on developing a database of carbon footprint of local materials. Right, it's something now I'm working towards. I got in, when I got involved, there's a lot of mess from the previous people who are in charge. So Nazra, myself, and the rest of the current board basically came in and we were dealing with that. So it's now very streamlined, very organized, and now I would like to kind of pursue that a bit more. If someone's, someone who's a KGBS member or wants to become a KGBS member and is interested in this, please reach out and we can see how to work together on this. Yeah, it's good to join as a graduate. I think networking is good. You get to meet a lot of architects, developers. I find it very useful, to be honest. And I'm not just saying it because I'm the vice chair, but I genuinely find the events multi-sectoral. So you get a lot of suppliers, vendors. So you get a lot of exposure basically as a graduate. I think it's extremely useful. Gerald Minor. Yeah, look, honestly speaking, a lot of these permits were done irregularly. We all know it, right? So in as much as we are citing complaints by residents, the truth of the matter is a lot of these developments the approvals have been gotten, through less than straightforward means. So for me, I mean, for us, we have a zero tolerance policy for any bribery or any such thing. So for us, we basically apply and we wait. We wait for the county to give us the approvals. We keep on following up, keep on doing our best until they give us, either comments or the approvals. So I think some of them are warranted. Some of them may be a bit, how can I put it, too stringent on what they envision the neighborhood to be. However, I would say 80% of them are valid. Maybe 20% of them are invalid. I mean, in terms of the views from the residents, I would say 80% of the views from the residents are valid, where you do get a lot of forced developments where they're not really meant to be there. And it's partially the county's fault for lack of planning overall. We're venturing into a different discussion right now, but yeah, it's the onus is on the county to do the job. Urban planning, proper infrastructure. Michael, how many participants do we have right now?
We are at 65. I think we had 73 at the highest. But it's quite an interesting session, and we are considering calling you back as we arrange for more mentorship programs next year. And as you can
Very
see,
nice question.
more questions are coming in.
Ben Lee. What is Kenyan architecture? Philosophical question of the day. Very difficult one to answer. So in my opinion, it's not being literal. So we don't design buildings that are shaped like hearts, no, because circular housing forms are synonymous everywhere. What is unique, in my opinion, are certain crafts. So, for example, for Microsoft, we felt like the weaving and ornamentation basically was something that was synonymous across most tribes in Kenya. And that's something then we started to implement into the feature that we have in the reception. So for me, that is the key thing. I try to implement craft. So even we're doing an office tower, and in the facade we've integrated locally derived patterns. So historically used patterns, obviously. So that's the key thing: is how do you can't be literal in this sense. You have to kind of look at it from approach of if the principles that were there for the design of these communities and developments, how they decorated them, how they arranged them, how privacy was achieved. So those are the principles that we use as opposed to just literally taking forms from traditional African architecture. So I think that for me is the derivative, not being literal. Brian.
Something just to add. Next year, we'll be having the Nairobi Biennale, which is going to be the first Biennale within the African continent. And that's the same question you're asking ourselves. How do we create a pavilion for our association for Kenya that will have this identity? I think I'll welcome all your critiques as we continue figuring this topic out. What is Kenyan identity? Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah. Current state of undergraduate architecture training. Wow. Do you want me to hold back or do you want me to be brutal? I think I'll just be blunt on this. UN has gone through a very dark chapter of leadership, and I think we're now seeing light at the end of the tunnel. There's Dennis. Okay. Yeah. Honestly speaking, I feel like it's been run like a high school, where it's basically all the students are being told my way or the highway, and very unfortunate. Again, limiting free thinking, and what's the result? You get portfolios that look the same, that lack inspiration. They lack oomph. There's no one there pushing boundaries. If I could, I'd like to share on the group. I'm going to share in the chat basically. This is a third-year project of mine, right? If I can share images. I'm not sure if I can share images. Could you let me share images if that's possible? Maybe I could share my screen instead.
Yeah, kindly try with the screen sharing.
Yeah, let me try the screen share. So this was my third-year work basically in UN, right? Third year, this is 2009. So I'm not sure if you guys get the point. Like, we've come a long way from. I mean, we shouldn't be basically moving backward. Is my point, and that's what we're doing right now. We have stagnated in such a bad way. Free thinking has been stifled. Research on digital manufacturing, on digital design technology has been stifled. So again, it's very unfortunate because you're competing against international trained architects as well, and the gap is widening. I always say, we are maybe 15 years behind as a firm from cutting edge technology. So I'm talking about ICKD, like Stuttgart Institute of Computational Design, probably about 15 years behind that, right? I would say, you and JQuat is a bit more advanced in my opinion. They allow a bit more flexibility, and the chairman is a lot more flexible. I mean, whenever I've called the chairman for JQuat multiple times to ask about interns, and he's been very helpful. Whereas I had called the ex-chairman of UN several times and never picked up my call even once. Um, I hope things change now with the new leadership. So yes, it's the major challenges, and it's very unfortunate that a whole generation of graduates have been affected in this way, and that's why we want to start mentoring and helping people to get out of these dark times. Um, so really, honestly speaking, I think that's been the major challenge. It's just stifling free thinking, basically. As university shouldn't be the case. Yeah, okay, that's true actually. So I had actually applied for a job as a lecturer. I was stonewalled. I was told I can't lecture because I have a firm. Um, Unbelievable as it is, that's what I was told. Um, so yeah, again, stifling free thinking. So you can't separate the two. And if you look at the medical field, for instance, there is no way a lecturer cannot be practicing. It doesn't, that's not that never happens in the medical field. So why is it happening in the architectural field? So we need to change things around. Basically, we need to have people who are actively practicing day-to-day projects, not people who've done a project 20 years ago, one project, they've got a couple of awards and that's it. And that's it, move from there. So, uh, so I've seen a comment, education pre-university. Yes, to a certain extent. So art, art in high school, and the graphic design knowledge I learned in graphic design knowledge I learned whilst I was working before university. However, the form making and these design skills I learned in university. So these ones, it may have been, I may have had a good eye for composition, which helped. But the form making that actually came in during university. It's not an easy skill to pick up on.
Just to add, my 2 cents when it comes to the state of architecture is in Kenya, we have a bias towards buildability. So you find if you have a know-it-all client, or you have one of those projects where the fundis have become rogue, the fundis, the contractors, it turns whatever manifestation of your design is, like if you wanted something curvilinear, Zaha did-esque, it will be rationalized until it's just a small, smooth curve on the edges. So there's a lot of factors that are pushing us into this, into the box, for lack of a better description. But yeah, with our efforts, with our exploration of tools, technology, all this can change. It's not out of our capacity. We just have to believe and maintain.
I think it's a matter of, yeah, I think we need to jointly kind of push the industry and educate clients and say no to clients who are stubborn, and they want to do things the Joe Kali way. Jointly, if the whole industry just said no and there were no quirks, where would they go? If we enforced proper systems in place, where would they go? Everyone would be forced to do things the right way. It's simply because someone thinks, things are not working, so I'm going to still do things the wrong way. Those are the people that are making things worse. So it starts with you as an individual. Start doing things the right way. We'll build a movement, basically. If there are enough of us, yeah, we'll start building a movement. And then the people doing things wrong will be outliers, basically. Okay, let's go to Dennis. Does the idea of remote architectural work? It worked for us during COVID when we were doing Microsoft, but that was only because we had one project. With multiple projects, you do need a bit of studio culture. It's you're bouncing off ideas, you're discussing with your colleagues. It's very difficult to do that remotely. And then also just talking, it makes it fun. There's banter in the office. It's a nice environment to be in. So you're not going to get that sitting at your desk, but you do need time of quiet time, I would say. I also like stepping away sometimes and just sketching and thinking. But other times now, when you've developed that, you do want to bounce it off. Even for me, I bounce it off with some of the associates here, or there's the architects here, and we have a meaningful discussion on the designs. Any iconic architects or lecturers you had the more radio design stuff? I really liked Shigeru Ban's work. I like a lot of the Japanese architects. I would say Shigeru Ban, Kengo Kuma. Zaha is okay, but my main challenge is okay. Expressionist wise, fantastic, but my main thing is I feel like for that era it was amazing. But as we move now towards an era of more sustainable design, I feel like it needs to adapt. Foster, okay, not bad as well. Mad, also quite interesting. I like Herzog de Miro, for example. I would say the Philharmonie in Hamburg. That's a fantastic building. If you look at how they did the acoustics, how they isolated the acoustics of that, the facade treatment, it's a beautiful building. For me, that's a very good piece of architecture, I would say. Okay. I guess guys are out of questions now.
It's not even that bad. I guess we have 8 minutes left. What's your impression? We can take the few questions coming in.
Yeah, Brian, I can see you filling in the gaps. Yeah, my management style. So I don't micromanage. Everyone gets, project comes in, normally given to one of the senior architects. They develop it. I'll come in, and again, it's studio based. So they'll come in, so okay, fine, what do you think about this? We kind of thrash out ideas. If I see them struggling is when I'll step in. But most of the time, especially for smaller projects, they can handle them. There are certain projects I don't even know what's going on. It's just autopilot, especially for like the bread and butter projects like bank branches, things like that. The team handles it well enough where I don't need to intervene. Bigger projects obviously come in, statement projects, more complex projects. I would need to step in and kind of guide them. Look out for this, look out for this. And it's really about, for me, the main focus is always systems. I want to work as smart as possible. So we have good systems in our architect templates. Our templates are very robust. We're now developing a very thorough manual guiding everyone to, how to do things. So I think that's the key thing. We've invested a lot in technology. All our workstations are extremely high end. We're running 4070s, 4080s, 64 gigs of RAM in all our machines, dual screens, color calibrated. So really powerful machines. So there's no bottlenecks like that. We use cloud-based systems. We use BIM cloud for ArchiCAD, so multiple people can work together. So again, try to make work as easy and fast as possible for the whole team, so that it's a comfortable environment. And also not being an asshole to the, sorry, to the staff. You have to treat your team well. If at the end of the day, you have to have respect for your employees. You have to treat them with respect if you want to get respect back. So understanding that the human, people have off days. That's a big time off. Don't. It's never that serious. Work will come. Work will be there tomorrow. Key thing is making sure that the team is comfortable in the environment, and you get better work that way. It's there's a lot of mutual trust. So we don't police. There's a lot of mutual trust basically in the office, and I think that's what takes it forward. For QS, we start sharing at mid concept even, not to an end of concept. So stage 2, basically mid of stage 2, we start sharing it to the QS for cost estimates. And to be honest, because we're using BIM, we've started building in estimates into our BIM software. So for example, for one of our projects, we were able to test out when we changed the class of concrete for the columns from class 30 to class 40, it adjusted the steel incidence within the columns and the rates were already plugged in. So we could actually test how much impact that had on the costings. So we are moving towards a basically fully collaborative BIM platform for costs and EP. So we're building on it as we go along.
And guys, I would like to close our Q&A session as we wind up the entire mentorship series that we have been doing today. Just a kind reminder that we will be having our third and last mentorship session next week, physical. This will be at the AAK Build Hub, T-Mall, where the T-Mall roundabout. Next to it, there's One Stop Plaza. One Stop Plaza is where we have the AAK Build Hub on the 3rd floor. Karibuni, and kindly let's take the time to thank the enigma that is Gurmukh Panesa. We used to call him Guru back in campus, and we can tell he's very knowledgeable. He was also an inspiration. So if it wasn't for you, Guru, I wouldn't have been trying my best to catch up to the standards.
Thank you, everyone. Just a few closing remarks. Yeah, I've stopped using Guru, by the way. I don't use that anymore. I only use Gurmukh. But thank you, everyone, for your time. And if you need to reach out, I'd be happy to, reach out on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. Happy to interact over there as well if you need to. So yeah, please reach out. I normally do respond to almost everyone. So please reach out and we can take it from there. Thank you again, everyone, for your time, and to AAK for setting this up.
Karibu sana.
Thanks.
And for the rest, we're looking forward to the next and last session. Asante. Gurmukh.
Bye.
All the best.